Dustin Dopirak with us from Las Vegas, site of the NBA Summer League. And Trayce Jackson-Davis hopefully making his debut here this week. Dustin, Jalen Hood-Schifino has played in 4 games already, but I was thinking earlier, these guys were a year ago, they were both in college. 2 years ago, Jalen Hood-Schifino was still in high school. Now, Trayce Jackson-Davis is on a roster that includes Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Chris Paul. Jalen Hood-Schifino is on a roster that includes LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and D'Angelo Russell.
Right.
And I'm like, I competed in pro rodeo, so I got the opportunity to compete against guys that I looked at as, wow, why am I here? But I can't imagine that's just another level, because these guys are far more well known, and it's growing up, posters, the whole thing. It's I don't know that how you can ever not be starstruck. I don't care who you are. If you're not, then there's something wrong with you. I mean, it's just you got to have that in your system.
Right. And this is sort of a very fascinating period about watching them move into those places, like move into teams where they're with true superstars, because obviously Summer League, they're not working with them. But a lot of them are showing up. Now, LeBron James isn't here. So, I mean, I saw a video, like LeBron's coaching AAU.
He was at the Peach Jam, I believe, right?
I think so. I mean, I saw him on a bench in a jersey with a clipboard. Like, that guy can't sit still. Seriously. Dear Lord. Who's like, I got $1 billion. You know what I'm going to do this summer? Coach AAU. Like, LeBron James. I'm one of the best players that ever lived, like top 5, even if you're, don't like him, maybe number 1 if you do, top 2, and mostly everybody. And kids going to college doesn't have to coach his kid, anything like that. But it's just like, you know what I should do this summer? I should coach AAU basketball. Like, LeBron James, man, that's the most LeBron thing.
And I've never been a huge LeBron James fan, but I give it up to him. He obviously loves the game, and he loves being around the game. More so than most, because like you don't get a lot of time off when you're a professional athlete. So to go spend it in a different realm of the sport is a whole other thing.
Yeah, coaching high school kids in what is a not super structured environment, like the sort of place that you would think would sort of drive people that are really like basketball crazy nuts, because it's just like, it's just everybody's in isolation and just trying to find a way to show off. And, you see him out there with a clipboard. Well, you got to go do this. You got to do that. Like, I mean, I'm just imagining him. And what really, it was actually probably the second time I'd ever seen him in the flesh, the first time was at his camp. And this is also kind of cool too. Like, I went to LeBron camp back in 2010, and Anthony Davis was there. This was Anthony Davis in high school. I think he was a year out. Still had another year before he enrolled at Kentucky. Anthony Davis was at LeBron's camp.
Did you have eligibility left?
Yeah, he had a year. This was he was rising senior.
Did you have eligibility left?
What's up?
Did you have eligibility left?
No, I had no eligibility in anything. I was old already. I was 28. Yeah, no, I mean, so it's just crazy. And you see around that. But I remember the second time I saw him in the flesh was at Bronny's game. I miss Maxine too, Kevin House. I'll tell you more.
Maxine has become famous.
She is. I'm going to tell my wife this. She's going to be so happy that somebody asked about her. Trust me. My wife loves the fact that Maxine is radio famous, because she has comments on everything. But no, I remember seeing LeBron at a EYBL tournament in Westfield, and it was actually Bronny was playing Imani Bates, and this was the year, like, LeBron's first year with the Lakers. Before they won the title, they were out of the playoffs. It was the first time he'd been to 8 straight NBA finals, and so he had nothing to do in May for like the first time ever, and he's losing it. I mean, he was so invested. He was the most invested parent. Now, it was fine because he could like go talk to these kids and tell them you should do this, you should do that. And the coaches were like, yeah, sure, we'll take literally anything that you could say. Well, whatever you speak, like every other parent's like that. They're like, hey, what are we doing here? What are we trying to coach the team? What is this? LeBron doesn't. You're like, coach the team, sure. You know more than maybe all but possibly one or two players who ever play this game. Tell our kids, that'd be great. But like he was so invested in it. I mean, and which I think was cool from a parenting standpoint. Bronny and Bryson, whenever he showed up at events, they knew like for as big a deal as he is, he was all in on their stuff, all in. And it's just cool to see him there. But to get back to this initial story, because I do think LeBron as an AAU coach is a fascinating tale. I mean, Jalen doesn't get to see him there, but like, they're going to be with these superstar pros, and you see these teams, sort of absorb these young kids every year, and I do think it's one of the most rewarding things for the veterans, and they love it. I mean, watching the Pacers here just get all in for Jarris Walker, and like that's kind of why a lot of these guys. It's not why a lot of these guys show up because they get to come around, gamble, party, and have a blast, but at game time, they all show up at courtside, and you get to see the rookies. And while they're there, they just invest. They just put their whole selves into being a fan because they want these guys to come out of it feeling confident and feel like part of the team, and come help. And so you saw that a little bit more from Golden State. They've had more of their guys there. I know Curry's been around, Chris Paul's been around, and Trace hasn't got to play to really experience it and enjoy it. But they're getting around to be with these guys and get now a sense that they are pros and they're part of the team with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and everybody else. And Steve Kerr is their coach. The head coaches are hanging around. They're not obviously taking, running the teams out here, but they're there, and there's other assistants that are on the bench along with whoever they appoint summer league coach. And so they're starting to get integrated, and it's a cool way that they do this. It's sort of like it's like an initiation period. And it's fun to watch just the dynamic or how the veterans that aren't playing sort of take in the rookies that are in the course of this week.
Yeah, and it's always fun just to watch those rides go and traveling in the year. And that's something I keep pointing out that while you look at Indiana's program, and while it has had a lot of ebbs and flows up and down over the last decade or so, Indiana still has by far the most players in the NBA of any other Big Ten team, which to me that's eye-catching because they have not had that consistent success. They haven't had the success Purdue has, yet Purdue does not produce pro players. Michigan State has been more consistent, but they still don't have the amount of players in the league that Indiana does.
We're talking all time, right? I mean, Michigan State has to have more right now.
Not right now, I don't think.
Not right now. Wow, that's amazing.
Former players. The last time I checked, Indiana was actually tied with Ohio State, which now they've gone ahead of that. But I think Michigan State's right behind that. But yeah, you would certainly think. I would have bet Michigan State 10 times out of 10.
Sure. And it's been just a much better recent tenure. No, I mean, obviously, one thing it says is that Indiana can always get in with some of the best guys in the Midwest and has at least a puncher's chance at some blue chip guys all the time. They can get in the door, and even when they haven't put together great teams. They've always managed to get one or two guys. Like at worst, it's been a McDonald's All-American every other year. And so again, like you go back to a guy like Noah Vonleh, who played one season. Had excellent numbers as an individual. That team wasn't any good, but Noah Vonleh has been kicking around the league since then. Like hasn't been great, but has some skills, some size. He's been useful for a bunch of teams, just moving about in and out, two-way deals, like 10-day contracts, whatever, but he's found a way to stick. he certainly had a rough time once he got to play, arguably the moment's best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. But up until then,
who wouldn't have? Not many other people wouldn't have had that same.
Nobody else, did a good job on him all year. Certainly all playoffs. So he said, since all playoffs, so he was all right. Vic, obviously, unfortunately, it's he's going to get paid this year. I don't know if he's going to play, because of the injury situation. But, I don't know if he's going to be able to play well. It's been a sad deal that he's gotten so many of these. But Oklahoma City Thunder are still going to give him still have to pay him $9.5 million. So that's not the worst thing in the world. Eric Gordon's getting
$5 would be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Eric Gordon, getting another shot on a really good team.
He's the anchor, man. He's the anchor of the former IU players that are in the league.
Yeah, for being a guy that is consistently productive, every year, just being the type of guy that he is, he's going to be really useful for that Phoenix team. Right, really as a second unit guy, as a shooter, as somebody that doesn't need to have the ball in his hands a lot. Obviously, between Booker and Beal and Durant, it's going to be tough to space out those shots and keep everybody happy. But Gordon's going to be a guy who doesn't need to shoot it a lot, and more to the point, doesn't need to have it a lot. He can get off 12 or 13 shots in 20 seconds of having the ball in his hands. So that'll be nice for them, and he'll be useful, and he's got a real crack at a title. I mean, I think I think some people are starting to put Phoenix in as a favorite. I'm not going to go there because just after Denver was this good, I really think we underrated Denver. I don't think everybody kind of, it's almost like everybody thinks the Nuggets winning was a fluke. Like, they were dominant in the playoffs. I mean,
nobody was going to beat them. No one was going to beat them.
Yeah, and I get that they caught some breaks by who won and who didn't, in theory. But I mean, the Lakers were a 7 seed in the Western Conference Finals, but they still had LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. So that's not a cheap win. They beat Phoenix. That's a legit, obviously a perfectly legit semifinal. And the NBA Finals, obviously you get an 8 seed in the Heat, but as was very, very clear, they weren't operating like an 8 seed. That team had just been in the finals. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are a problem and will be a problem for the entirety of when they can lace up sneakers. They are tough to beat. So, there's to me nothing cheap about what they did. And what were they, 16-2 or something? I mean, 16-3. How many games did they even lose the entire tournament? They just ransacked that, the NBA playoffs. So I'm not going to put them up there, and say Phoenix is the definitive favorite, but they certainly are the team that has the best chance of taking down Denver in this coming season in the West. So, Eric Gordon has a real chance of coming out of this with the ring.